Now's the time to learn it. Now's the time to experiment with it. Now's the time to start using it, because you always want to take your risk when there's the least at stake. You know, it's like Amazon releasing it. When no one had any expectations for Alexa, there's nothing to lose. People always talk about when you're first, that's where you get the arrows in your back. I always wore a little vest. I don't mind the arrows because it means you're still behind me, and I can survive some arrows and a little bit of pain. But what you can't survive, it's harder to ride in the draft of people ahead of you now, because things accelerate so much more quickly than it used to. There's so much less manual labor associated with it, and there's becoming less and less as you go forward. So, you know, learning that skill set with Alexa, learning it, understanding NLP and what the nuances of it are, knowing where you use machine learning, where you use neural networks, you know, how does deep learning play? You know, what's a GAN? All these different things. It seems crazy, and there's so much of it. And the number of papers, now it's like 500 a day, it seems like, right? And what is an IXR, whatever the thing is, right? But you've got to take that step. This is the price of poker. There's no future that doesn't have ambient computing or voice activation. None.
That's super cool. I just can't imagine what the future is going to be like.
It's great.
5 years from now is crazy.
But you know what? Like my dad used to say, you know, we don't live in the world we were born into. If you just think about the year you were born and the stuff that was around, you know, it's crazy. You know, a 90-year-old that was born in 1928. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, people weren't, you know, flying commercially then. You know, no radio, I mean, there was radio, but 1920 was when they really started broadcasting radio, right? No TV, just things that are archaic already now that weren't around for people who are alive today, and it's not going to change. It's not going to slow down. I think if anything, it'll accelerate, and you could hypothesize about our future, and there's a lot of different directions it can go. You know, it reminds me of the early days of the internet. We started streaming back in early 1995, and back then it wasn't even called streaming, right? It was netcasting or internet broadcasting, and I was like, okay, we can, and I went to Indiana University, a huge basketball school, right? And the way we used to listen to basketball games back then was somebody would put a radio next to a speakerphone, and then we would have the speakerphone on the other side in our 6-packs or 12-packs of beer, and we would listen. Now it was long distance back then, which was even worse. But I was like, so we're gonna be able to broadcast anything, anywhere. And they're like, well, why don't you just watch it on TV? You know, it's just like internet on the radio. I was like, no, but that's just people's, you know, they when it comes to anything new, it's not their job to know what's next. You know, people just live their lives, and that's the cool part about technology. When you really get into it and you start, Steve Jobs said everything's a remix, you know, and so when you start remixing what exists and things you're starting to see, voice, you know, AI, 5G, et cetera, you can start to predict what's next as these things advance. And so, you know, that's what I love to do.